Back in 1849 in Boston, Massachusetts, United States, something happened that would change everything. It began as a disappearance that cut through the calm arrogance of Boston society. Dr. George Parkman was a wealthy physician and one of the city's most prominent men, a landowner, philanthropist, and a familiar face among the Brahmin elite. John White Webster was a professor of chemistry at Harvard Medical College, learned, genteel, and, by many accounts, quietly desperate. Debt had gnawed at him. Parkman, to whom Webster owed money, went to the college that November, ostensibly to collect what he believed he was owed. He never walked back out. For a week, the city buzzed with anxious whispers. Then, a janitor named Ephraim Littlefield, uneasy over what he had seen at the medical school and driven by a quiet instinct that something was wrong, undertook a furtive search of rooms which had been closed to the public. What he found would detonate a scandal: human remains hidden in Professor Webster's rooms and melting pot of surgical refuse in the dissection theater. The discovery was gruesome and undeniable. Bones, fragments, and instruments that raised an ugly question. Had a respected scholar committed murder in the name of debt and pride? Investigators moved through the fog of privilege, and the tools of emerging forensic science were called in. Nathan Cooley Keep, a dentist, examined partial jawbones and prosthetic work with painstaking care and declared a match to Dr. Parkman's dental appliances. This identification, simple, clinical, and persuasive, became one of the earliest and most famous uses of dental forensics in an American murder trial. The city's newspapers seized on every detail. Crowds gathered outside courthouses and filling stations of gossip. The case became a lens through which Bostonians watched the fragile architecture of reputation and class begin to crumble. At trial, the prosecution drew a stark picture. Webster, pressed for cash and fearful of exposure, murdered Parkman when confronted about the debt, dismembered the body, and tried to conceal the crime using the very tools of his profession. The defense offered a competing story of interrupted errands, mistaken identity, and attacks on the reliability of circumstantial evidence. Behind both accounts, however, lay a subtler conspiracy. Not a conspiracy of accomplices in the traditional sense, but an informal pact among elite institutions to protect their own. Harvard's faculty were slow to cooperate fully. Colleagues hesitated in testimony. Students and servants who might have seen or heard more were intimidated by the social power of the accused. That reluctance blurred the line between individual guilt and institutional self-preservation. Chief Justice Lemuel Shaw presided over the spectacle, and the courtroom became a stage on which the city's anxieties about science, authority, and social privilege were performed. Webster's demeanor, the forensic evidence, and the relentless reporting turned the tide of public opinion. When the jury returned a verdict of guilty, many spectators felt as if an old order had been forced to account for its darkest impulses. Webster was sentenced to hang. On a late August day in 1850, the sentence was carried out, and a somber, uneasy city watched the end of a man once called respectable. The Parkman-Webster case left a legacy beyond the tragedy of two ruined lives. It pushed forensic techniques into public and legal consciousness, forced institutions to confront how status could obstruct justice, and provoked debate about how far social standing could shield a man from suspicion. More than a crime story, it was a morality play staged in a young nation's oldest precincts, an ugly, instructive reminder that secrets kept in the name of reputation can become the very instruments of a conspiracy that destroys the privileged as surely as the powerless. This is just one chapter of a much darker past. Subscribe now, because the next story might change how you see history forever.